evening, and welcome to Lights Out Storytime with the Houston Public Library. I'm Kristin, and tonight we'll be reading The Scarecrow, an original tale written by Denham. The Scarecrow. Stanley hated scarecrows. They were creepy and weird and didn't really do anything to keep birds away from the harvest. Why did people insist on putting up scarecrows? He pondered as he walked home in the fading light. If he wasn't home before dark, he'd be grounded for sure. His mother had been very strict about the home by dark rule since the move, which was weird since the town was really small. He should have already been home, but had to stay late for detention after school. The road cutting through the cornfield was the fastest way home from school, but the route also passed the scarecrow that had bothered him since his family moved to Corviston. Ever since his family had moved into the old farmhouse, Stanley had been having nightmares about the scarecrow. In his dreams, the straw man climbed down from his cross and hunted him through the cornfield. Each night, the monster seemed to get closer, and Stanley was worried what would happen if the scarecrow ever caught him. If a monster catches you in a dream, can you die in real life? Stanley's parents didn't understand his feelings about the scarecrow. They insisted that he was being silly, letting an inanimate object freak him out. But Stanley knew the truth. There was something wrong with the scarecrow, something dangerous. He kicked a crumpled soda can down the road. It made a hollow tonk, tonk, tonk noise as it bounced along the gravel. The scarecrow loomed on his left, crucified arms held out menacingly, tattered plaid flannel fabric flapping in the light breeze. A crumpled hat shadowed the straw man's face, hiding the crudely drawn features, but Stanley knew it was watching him. He could feel it. His steps slowed, eyes locked on the scarecrow. Had it changed position? Hadn't it been facing into the cornfield this morning when he walked to school? Goosebumps prickled down his arms and his hands clenched into fists. He looked around, hoping someone was nearby, but tall stalks of corn blocked his sight. The corn swayed in the breeze, whispering to him, a wicked, sinister hissing noise that almost sounded like his name. Stanley slipped his thumbs beneath his backpack straps and glared at the scarecrow. Decisions. Sprint past the thing and hope for the best? Or turn around, take the long way around, and get grounded for being late? Stanley tightened his grip on the straps of his backpack and gathered himself for a fast sprint. Just as Stanley began to lean into a sprinter's crouch, the crunch of tires on gravel grumbled up behind him. He turned to peer back down the road. The light was beginning to fade, but he could make out Mr. Bellman's battered green truck. Mr. Bellman lived on the neighboring farm and was a native resident of Corviston. He was old, like really, really old. He had grown up in Corviston and gone away for a while to fight in the war, but returned to his hometown and the family farm when the war was done. He told Stanley that someone had to keep an eye on the town, but his eyes had been locked on the scarecrow when he made that statement, and Stanley suspected that he really meant someone had to keep an eye on the scarecrow. Stanley reluctantly moved to the side of the road, closer to the corn, and out of the way as the truck neared. The truck slowed and came to a stop in front of him. Mr. Bellman leaned over to look at Stanley over a partially rolled down window. "What are you doing out here so late?" asked Mr. Bellman. "I'm on the way home from school. I had detention," said Stanley. "You shouldn't be walking through these fields after dark." Mr. Bellman trailed off, his gaze searching the corn. "It can be dangerous. Easy to get lost. Get on in. I'll give you a ride home." With that, Mr. Bellman opened the passenger door and gestured for Stanley to enter the truck's cab. Grateful that he wasn't going to have to run past the scarecrow, Stanley gave a quick, "Thanks," and hopped into the truck. Mr. Bellman eased up on the brake and the truck rolled forward. "I appreciate the ride, Mr. Bellman. I hate that scarecrow. It creeps me out, and I was dreading having to walk past it. I don't care if that makes me a coward. There's something wrong with that thing." Mr. Bellman's voice was as rough as the gravel under the truck's tires. "You're right, Stanley. There is something wrong with that scarecrow. Something evil." Stanley stared at Mr. Bellman. Adults never admitted things like this. You think there's something wrong with it too? He asked. I know there is, Mr. Bellman replied. He tightened his fingers around the steering wheel. Flex, release, flex, release. He took a deep breath. When I was a little older than you, my younger brother disappeared. Everyone said that he must have run away or been kidnapped by a drifter. I tried to tell them it was a scarecrow, but no one would listen to me. How do you know that your brother didn't run away or get kidnapped? Stanley asked. Because I saw it happen. I saw the scarecrow. I saw what it did, said Mr. Bellman. I told my parents, the police, anyone who would listen what I saw, but none of them believed me. They thought I'd made it up, or that I'd seen something so terrible I couldn't remember it clearly. You saw it? Stanley asked. Really? Really, said Mr. Bellman. We were walking back from the creek one night. We'd been frog hunting, which is best done at night with a flashlight. We were cutting through the cornfield and noticed that the scarecrow was missing. We could see clearly since the corn was only a couple feet high at that point, not as tall as it is right now. The moon was full and we had flashlights. There was enough light that I remember seeing the red of Billy's baseball cap clearly. I even joked about him wearing that hat at night. When we shone our flashlights at the scarecrow's cross, it was empty. Now I found that strange, but thought maybe my dad had taken it down to restuff. We never expected what happened next. Stanley gulped. What happened? Billy got took. That's what happened. The scarecrow appeared out of nowhere and grabbed Billy. It moved so fast I only saw it for a split second, but I heard it. I heard the crunch of bending straw, and I saw those straw-filled arms wrap around Billy. Then nothing. They were gone. I ran the rest of the way home and told my parents what happened. They went looking in the field, but the scarecrow was back on its cross, and Billy had disappeared. My parents called the authorities. Everyone looked, but no one found Billy. The next day, I saw the scarecrow from my bedroom window. It had turned in the night so it was facing the house, and it was wearing a new red hat, Billy's hat. Mr. Bellman pulled up in front of the farmhouse as he finished his tale. You stay away from the field come nighttime. You hear me, son? Yes, sir, said Stanley. I promise. All right, then, said Mr. Bellman. Go on in. Tell your mama hello for me. Yes, sir, repeated Stanley. Thank you for the ride. And for telling me the truth. That night, Stanley stood in his bedroom window and watched the scarecrow until he couldn't stay awake any longer. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. Stanley settled into life in Corviston. The scarecrow still creeped him out, but the conversation he had with Mr. Bellman began to fade from his mind, especially after he learned that Mr. Bellman was considered the town eccentric. One day, about 6 months after Stanley and his family had moved to Corviston, he and his new friend Sam were walking home from school after staying late for play practice. It was well into fall, and dark came quickly these days. The blood-red sun drifted below the horizon as they walked along the gravel road through the cornfield, the final rays casting long, monstrous shadows ahead of Stanley and Sam. The wind was blowing, and the field once more seemed to whisper Stanley's name. Suddenly, Mr. Bellman's warnings about the scarecrow and not crossing through the field after dark didn't seem so silly. Stanley shivered in his new jean jacket and stopped walking. Sam walked a couple more steps before pausing to look back at Stanley. What's wrong? Why'd you stop? He asked. Stanley looked into the field, trying to find the scarecrow. Did you hear something? No, I didn't, said Sam. Stop trying to freak me out. Stanley kept looking around, but he couldn't see the scarecrow. We need to get out of here, he said. We need to get home. The last rays of the sinking sun died, and darkness overtook the field. Come on, said Stanley, grabbing Sam's arm. Run! The boys sprinted down the gravel road towards the glowing lights of the farmhouse. A voice hissed from all directions, whispering, ominous, Stanley. What is that? Yelled Sam. Just run, replied Stanley. They rounded the curve. They were almost at the farmhouse. A figure appeared in the road, vaguely human, but misshapen. The boys froze. Stanley. The figure disappeared. Arms grabbed Stanley from behind. The sound of breaking straw, screams, cries, then silence. The next morning, search parties began looking for Stanley, but he was never found. Mr. Bellman and Sam both tried to tell the authorities the truth, but no one believed them. The Scarecrow watched everything from its cross, the breeze playing with its sleeves of its new jean jacket. Thank you for joining us for Lights Out Storytime. We hope to see you again soon. Good night.